Hello everyone. My name is Art Russell. Welcome to my channel. If you will, I'd like you to take notice of the title of this video, Resting as I Am, which I'm suggesting is consciousness or awareness itself. That's very different from attempting to rest or be happy or at peace from the perspective of the person. When we're unaware of our essential nature as consciousness, we seek lasting happiness through favorable circumstances and conditions in the apparent world. But this almost always proves dissatisfying or even frustrating. For this video, what I'd like you to consider or contemplate is, what if an erroneous assumption about ourselves and the apparent world was robbing us of our innate peace and joy? I'd like this pen to represent our perspective as a person at one end, in the apparent world at the other end. This is subject-object duality. From the perspective of the person, we want conditions to be favorable, as I mentioned. So we're happy when we get the job, and we're unhappy when we lose the job. We desire to find a partner or a spouse, and we're happy when we find that partner, and then we're unhappy when we lose the partner. We're happy when we're prosperous, and we're unhappy when we're impoverished. What I'd like you to notice is the center point in all of these swings, these up and downs of the apparent person in the apparent world. During all of the swinging circumstances, this center point remains stable. And I'd like this center point, this fulcrum, so to speak, to represent consciousness, which is unmoved by circumstances. It's a far more stable perspective, and that's where we can truly rest as I am. From the perspective of spiritual truth, the awareness that I am is the same awareness that pervades deep sleep, the dream state, and waking state reality. In other words, awareness is. It's not dependent on the body-mind. It's not generated by the brain. So you might be asking, what information supports this understanding? And I'm going to share some points from science. For instance, the double-slit experiment, which was performed by Thomas Young in 1801 to 1803, suggests that particles, so in other words, apparently solid things, don't come into existence until they're observed. Also like to mention about atoms, that in the years between 1908 and 1911, Ernest Rutherford performed experiments that led to the conclusion that atoms, which were considered the solid building blocks of our material reality, which is really just a perspective or an interpretation, were actually comprised of 99.999% and even greater empty space. It's more accurate to think of atoms as probability clouds of electrons. And science is still investigating the nature of matter through the Large Hadron Collider, in which they smash particles together looking for discrete things. And all that they find as they go down to the smaller and smaller levels of our reality is energy. I'd also like to offer that in 1995, David Chalmers, who is a professor of philosophy, coined the phrase, the hard problem of consciousness. Now that relates to how apparently physical processes within the brain give rise to consciousness. And it may come as a surprise to know that this hasn't been determined. And it won't be, because I'm suggesting, as are others, that consciousness is primary. It's the substratum of all reality. It's impossible to have an experience in the absence of consciousness. Now, we also have direct experience of this when our mind falls asleep from the waking state reality and enters or merges with a dream state dream. During the dream, which seems as real can be, we assume the role of a character within that dream. And as long as the dream lasts, a brick building in the dream seems to be made of mortar and brick. But when we merge again with waking state reality, we realize that all there was to the time and space and persons and brick buildings in that dream state dream was rendered by consciousness. Now, I'd also like to mention a question that frequently comes up for those who are on a spiritual journey to discover their deeper nature of I am. The question is asked about deep sleep. And from the perspective of persons, it's believed that consciousness is not present there. But a question helps us clarify or discern clearly regarding that. And it's really, in deep sleep, is it really absence of awareness or awareness of absence of objects? In other words, consciousness is not creating. There is no time, no space. It's very peaceful and tranquil. And this is something that we can live from in the waking state reality. We don't have to react to circumstances from the perspective of the person. We see that the apparent person is witnessed. So that alone points to knowing that we're not it. We are the awareness in which that arises. I'd also like to offer a Sanskrit term which is called Jivan Mukti. And what it refers to is liberation while living. Liberation from the belief in being the perspective, or being the person, a long-lasting, independent, discrete person. We are the awareness in which the person, the apparent person, arises. There are also equivalent terms for Jivan Mukti in other spiritual traditions. I'd also like to offer the following verse from John chapter 14, verse 27, which is attributed to Jesus. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give unto you. Not as the world giveth, give I unto you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. And I'd offer that Jesus was advising or suggesting that we could know a much deeper dimension of self, our I amness, our true nature. If you found this video helpful or useful, I invite you to share, subscribe, and like. More information is available through my free articles at thinktwice.me and also through my book entitled This Taste of Flesh and Bones, available from Amazon. Thank you very much for listening. I look forward to seeing all of you again soon. Bye for now.